So, I am Seth Noble, CEO and founder of Data Expedition Incorporated, and our name really literally describes what we do. We're pretty literal about this sort of thing. We're a company that expedites the movement of your data, which means that whether it's media or databases or any other kind of information, we get it from point A to point B as quickly and efficiently as possible. We've been in this business since 2000, won an Emmy Award for our work with television a few years ago, and we work with a lot of the biggest companies around there. One of the companies we like to work with is Cloudian because of what they do with media workflows. The challenge with media workflows is that time is money. Everything you do costs money, whether it's in terms of resources or opportunity costs. And when you go to the cloud, you have the problem that everything you do has to move across a network. Your assets have to get to the cloud before you can do anything with them, and you have to get the data back out of the cloud before you can do anything with that product. When you're moving data around across the internet, though, that time is money factor becomes really huge because you have to sit and wait. I've heard from customers with worst-case scenarios of an editor being paid by the hour, sitting in an editing bay that they're paying for by the hour, having to wait 5 hours for the data to go up to the cloud, get processed, and comes back. He's twiddling his thumbs. Those dollar signs are adding up. Now, Cloudian helps with this a lot because what they do is move a lot of those cloud resources down to the local premises or into the editing bay where it can be accessed very, very quickly. But ultimately, you still have data that has to go up to the cloud, and if you have a global workflow, collaborators around the world, it multiplies. They have to download the stuff from the cloud too, put it back up, get it back to those time-sensitive resources. So that's where data expedition comes into play. What we do is take that data pipe and make the most of it. Now you'd think when you've got an internet connection, maybe it's a public internet connection, maybe it's a private path, that when you have a data speed problem, all you have to do is get a bigger pipe. The problem is that doesn't always work, especially when you're moving data long distances. The legacy technologies that are used to move data across IP networks simply don't scale up. They can't fill the pipe. So that's where we come in. We, with our software, are able to figure out how fast that pipe can and should go and fill it up so that you're getting the most out of the bandwidth infrastructure that you're already paying for. That means less time taken to move data up into the cloud, less time to distribute it to your collaborative workflows, and less time and therefore less money spent with resources sitting idle. So that's the challenge that we're dealing with when we talk about media asset workflow acceleration and transport acceleration in general. Let's dig in a little bit, though, and talk about why Data Expedition Incorporated is different. You've probably heard of some other people around here who also do transport acceleration. There's some big names, but we do things very differently than a lot of them because we are solely focused on that transport acceleration. We don't do media asset management. We don't do document management. We just focused on this one thing. Whoop, I think we got turned up a bit. So the secret sauce is the multi-purpose transaction protocol, and this is a transport protocol, which means that it's responsible for getting that data from point A to point B across the internet. What's different about it is that it intelligently adapts to the infrastructure as it finds it and as the infrastructure changes. That means that you don't have to sit there and turn knobs and fiddle with dials. You don't have to have an IT engineer figure out how to install this stuff. It's very, very fast without a human being having to tell it how fast it needs to go. That's a huge differentiator from some of the other technologies out there where it can literally take hours and constant maintenance to keep them going at the right speed. And this works over both public and private network paths. So if you've got a gigabit connection that's a direct connect to AWS, that's going to be fast. It's going to be a gigabit. If you've got a gigabit connection to the internet, that's also going to be an internet, and we all know internet paths are a lot cheaper than going over a private direct connect. That intelligent scaling keeps things simple. It means that when we put this software into end users' hands, they're able to use it immediately. In fact, most of our customers have downloaded and used our software from our website before they ever talk to us. Other technologies out there, in order to just use them, you have to sit on the phone with a network engineer and a support technician for 3 or 4 hours before you can even get it installed and running. Another advantage of intelligent adaptiveness and simplicity is that we work with your workflow. We're not trying to replace it. We're not trying to be your new media asset manager. We're not trying to be your new document tracking system. We go in to work with your existing workflow so that we can be minimally disruptive and maximize the infrastructure and the software utilities that you already have. That also means that you have very low maintenance in addition to low setup costs, so you don't have a lot of support requests coming from your end users. We've got very non-technical users out there who are able to use this straight out of the box. All of that intelligent adaptivity and simplicity translates into money in your pocket. Value is where we really come into that bottom line. We cost about 1/5 of what the other transport acceleration vendors out there will charge you. And a big part of that is predictability. We don't have a lot of hidden costs. We don't charge you by how fast your bandwidth is going. You upgrade your pipe, you don't have to come back and pay us more money. You've already paid for that infrastructure. We don't charge you by the gigabyte. We don't charge you by the seat. We don't license it according to how many people or files you have. In fact, our software is explicitly licensed so that you can distribute it to anybody you work with. None of this, you can't lease it, resell it. A lot of our customers are practically resellers of ours because they're able to take it into their services and put it out there just with the off-the-shelf software. In addition, within AWS, we're able to license this by the hour, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So let's get into these products. Now I'm going to talk to you about some of our end user products, including the ones that we do with Cloudian. Beyond this, though, there's a lot of integration utilities and software development kits that allow people who want to build this directly under the hood into their workflows, completely invisible to customers, so that you can take this technology and make it your own. But I'm just going to focus on the end user products today. So CloudDAT, we're all talking about cloud. This is basically that acceleration straight up into S3 object storage. It could be AWS, or it could be a compatible S3 API like Cloudian's. What we do is move the data as fast as the infrastructure can handle it. And in the case of a standard AWS instance going over a public internet, that's 900 megabits per second. That is 377 gigabytes that you can transfer to the cloud in an hour. This is available right now in AWS Marketplace, so you can actually go up there, have it up and running in about 5 minutes, and start moving this data. And the cost for that, including the instance charges from AWS, is $1.80. That's not a typo. I didn't get European on your decimal point there. $1.80 can move 377 gigabytes in an hour. If you need to move it even faster than that, if you've got the bandwidth, if you're coming from multiple locations, more instances get you more speed. And it's only limited by the actual infrastructure. If you have a direct connect that's multi-gigabit and you have a bigger instance, you can actually get faster than that. Again, we're not charging you 40 cents a gigabyte like some people are. You're just paying for the software. Once you have the software, how you use it is up to you. We have some customers who literally take advantage of that $1.80. They'll set up an instance and turn it on once or twice a month, move a few gigabytes or terabytes of data, and then turn it off. We have other customers that run it 24/7. We have special monthly pricing that will get this down to as little as 80 cents per hour. And that can really help you scale up because, of course, one of the advantages of cloud is that when you have a burst of activity, you can simply turn on more instances and increase that capacity. One thing to keep in mind here, especially for sensitive media workflows going with security studio content, is that we never touch your data. These are your instances traveling on your infrastructure with your software. We literally never touch your data. So there's no issues of security compliance because it's all on your systems, never through ours. Underneath CloudDAT is our flagship product called Expedat, which is all about transferring files point A to point B, and also other data flows, which is how it ties into CloudDAT and S3. Expedat follows that MTP/IP model of trying to maximize bandwidth, getting the most out of your infrastructure, maximum speed, any kind of data from anywhere to anywhere. It's licensed by the server. So again, you just pay for that one server license, you put the software on there, and the clients are free. There's no charge per seat, no charge per user, no charge per gigabyte. Keeping with that theme of simplicity, the software itself is a single executable less than a megabyte. There is no client-side installer. You literally just put the executable on somebody's desktop and it works. No admin privileges needed. That makes it really easy for end users. We even, for the most non-technical users, have a drag and drop application where an administrator pre-configures this little executable with everything it needs to know to transfer the data. So a person can take a file or a folder, drag it onto an icon, and it just goes to the right place. All that's included in the standard license. In addition to these end users, as I alluded earlier, we have integration solutions. We have scriptable command line utilities, parsable log files, hooks to web pages, so that you can integrate this under the hood of a workflow. You can brand it on your own so that it is not only seamless to end users, but you can make it invisible to end users. A close cousin of Expedat is SyncDat. This takes the idea of maximizing the resources and narrows it down to a very specialized use case of you have two folders full of assets or files in two different locations. Let's make them the same. One of the big challenges that you see with a lot of synchronization utilities is their dependence on legacy protocols. For example, a lot of them use CIFS or SMB or the AFP Apple protocol in order to do the actual scan of the files. So if you've got 100,000 or 1,000,000 files, it can take hours, sometimes days, just to figure out what needs to be moved in order to synchronize those two folders. Everything we do is over a multi-purpose transaction protocol. Every other solution out there that claims to do acceleration, they're hybrid solutions. They are a mix of TCP and UDP and NAS protocols. We are pure UDP. Everything we do is over our own proprietary protocol. That has huge benefits for security as well as performance. In the case of performance, we're talking about being able to scan hundreds of thousands to millions of files in minutes, where a Unix utility like rsync could take days to do the same thing, and that's before you even start moving data. Once you do start moving the data, it's all with multi-purpose transaction protocol, so it's going to go really, really fast. And when I say fast, what I'm really talking about is that 100% utilization. So how much faster is it than we've got now? How bad is what you've got now? Typically, we hear about 7 times faster, but for people who are on stressed networks, it could be 100 times faster. It could be 1,000 times faster. For people who have really good networks, it could be 2 times faster. This is one of the reasons why we really encourage people to try out the software. Another key differentiator for us is that you can actually do that. You can, like I said before, with the Cloudian, you can go to AWS and get a 7-day free trial right now. If you're familiar with AWS Marketplace, it takes about 5 minutes to set up. If you're not familiar, we have step-by-step with screenshots. It'll take you about 10 minutes to set up. Once it's up and running, you can get that $1.80. But wait, no, it's free for 7 days. All you have to pay is the AWS infrastructure charges. For Expedat and SyncDat, you can go to our website and download fully working software. This is not a demo going to a server that we've pre-configured to be all special and nice. You actually get the same thing you would get when you purchase a software, run it on your own infrastructure, and figure out for yourself what the benefits are. So that's Data Expedition Incorporated. That's how we help Cloudian help you guys to make your cloud workflows go faster and therefore cheaper. And I'll be happy to take any questions.